So, you know, find a part that doesn't have holes if you're recycling. Now, two things to bear in mind. Sorry if my shadow's on there. I don't have the best lighting. Remember that you need to leave room for if you haven't added the seam allowances to your final pattern. Sometimes I'm too lazy to do the final pattern. This is the base pattern, so it does not have the seam allowances. Therefore, you've got to now, when you cut, I'm gonna cut for a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I may end up using less, but just to be safe, I think I'll try to leave about a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you lay it on the fabric. It has to be cut through 2 pieces of fabric to cut the seam allowance. So you're not cutting straight along the pattern. You'll be cutting a little bit outside of the pattern to allow for about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Don't forget to mark the dart. You can't tell, but you would have cut the fabric right sides together. So this is the bad side, and the inside is the good side of the fabric. So you're saying, okay, I've marked the locations of the darts, but how am I supposed to transfer them? You know, no matter how exact you try to be, it's hard to do that. So first of all, for the shoulder point, here's an easy solution. Get a pin, and you can poke. This is one way. Of course, you use your own resourcefulness, and you might think of another way, and you do it the way that's best for you. Now, also bear in mind, for the video, I'm using, you know, very fat magic marker, but in real life, you would use something very more exact, like a very fine pencil or a very fine marker, because, you know, the thicker the lines, the less exact the coat will be. So you want to try to be more detailed. So anyway, you find that point, you put it right in the point there. So you have the location marked. So there you've got the shoulder marked on both sides. Oh shoot. Then for the shoulder point, you've got it. Oh, I wrote on myself. Yeah, don't use magic marker in real life. Okay, so there we have the shoulder point marked. And now for the darts, it's a little easier because they're on the end. You could do the same thing with the pin, sort of mark the point. But however you do it, this is what I'm choosing to do now. You know, once you have the marks, you can draw them. I made a mistake earlier when I was marking the points and I accidentally made 2 dots. Sometimes mistakes are meant to happen because there's a thing with darts. When you join darts at a point, like if I would have connected it here, you do have to deal with the sewing phase where that can come out looking very pointy. So it is a good idea not to join the 2 ends of a dart when you're a beginner. As you get better, of course, you'll learn to sew different ways. So some people opt to just sew just up to here and maybe up to here so that the darts don't actually join. And I was going to actually join the 2, but because of that mistake, I had made the 2 dots and I accidentally, you know, made the darts to 2 different points. I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to be concerned. When I realized I'd made that mistake, I decided to do the same thing on the other side. The important thing that it be symmetrical. And this is why I suggest do your first try on a scrap fabric that's not expensive. Could be a bed sheet, an old bed sheet that you were going to throw out, or something. And work out your mistakes on the first one as you're making your design. That's the important thing. And this is part of what it is to design intuitively. You make mistakes and you embrace the mistakes sometimes. How did Newton discover gravity? Or how did Benjamin Franklin discover electricity? They were accidents, and it could lead to something much nicer. So, you know, allow yourself to make mistakes. Try not to, but if you do make a mistake, don't go, oh, I messed up, I gotta quit. Just keep going, work through it. And then if you make a mistake and it's a complete disaster at the end, okay, next time you'll do a better job of it. Okay, so it's not like you're a surgeon. For example, there are some careers you can't make mistakes. A surgeon cannot make a mistake because somebody could die. So in that case, obviously, you can't just say, oh, I'll just wing it. But with sewing, that's the fun thing. Sewing, the only, okay, what's the worst that it will happen? So just feel free when you're creating. I'm going to make a round collar and for this second coat, I'm going to sew it together without the darts because I want to give it a softer look. So the first step is put these together, right size together, which is hard to tell on fleece. Fleece is a really nice fabric to start with because it's inexpensive and you don't have to worry about raw edges that much. So sew the back together first. So I've sewn the back. Now I've got to sew this one on, right sides together, because I want the right side to be facing this way. So be sure the collar, you want to have the middle point right on the middle of the jacket. So right where this line is the middle. See that line? I'm only working with one hand right now, but I'll line that up and sew it. And you'll notice there's like two triangles that come out. Even though it's harder to sew, I like to fold the triangles over and sew them on like that. Like fold them over the edge of the fabric. But that's up to you. If you find it easier to just cut that straight, you can go ahead and do that. Okay, just like that. Now the next decision you're going to have to make is how you want the front to close. Do you want the front to close permanently closed, for example, sewing it here, so you'd have to slip the jacket over your dog's head, or do you want to add more material here with Velcro or buttons so that it would be a wraparound where you'd close it on you'd just put it on the dog like a cape and then close the front with buttons, or however, these are all decisions that you're making now. Again, you make the jacket how you want. I sewed it on this way so the bad parts are in because I'm going to be putting the lining on. It's going to be a reversible one. That's why I want all of the ugly sides on one side. If you're going to be making a one-layer coat, for example, this right here is already a coat, but in that case you'd want to make the seams on this side French seams so that they wouldn't be yucky looking. I prefer to just put a lining in there. You see how this fabric, once it's cut, starts to fray and come apart? So it's important to sturdy that up by zigzag stitching all along the edges of the pattern pieces. Zigzag stitched all along the edges so that it doesn't come undone. So now all I do is go like this and just sew the back. And now time to put the collar on. Same as the other one. And this one, you have the raw edges outside. And this one, you have the raw edges, on the inside. Now you'll put them together, right sides together. So you're slipping this one inside of this one. Now you see with this one, my collars are two different shapes. So as I'm lining it up and pinning it together, getting ready to sew, I'm going to obviously cut the collar to the same shape. So that's what you can do. Otherwise, you may decide to do like what I did with the other coat. On this one, which I've already sewn, I chose not to line the collar. I just decided to, the inside is lined, as you can see. I still haven't finished putting the strap on this one. But I chose to sew the collar in between the lining, the two linings. So it's just a single collar. So right now, we've lined up the collars and we're going to sew just around the collar portion. Just around here, see? And pull the collar out. Here you have the collar, which is sewn together, and the two sides, right sides together. So just now put this one through here and make it all right sides outwards. You have it inside out with this part on the outside. collar. We'll flip this one. So now, this is what you're doing here. Like this, flip it over, and now put these right sides together. It's a little awkward because you're putting, you know, you're dealing with the hole here where the collar is. But you can't flip the whole thing inside out because of that excess hole. So now pin all the sides together as far as you can go. Line that up and pin it all around, because now you're going to sew this part. Pin it and sew it as far as you can go, but remember you need to leave one side, the side for the strap, you leave that open, because at the end you stick the strap in and top stitch it in. So there's one hole that's closed. You can't just sew the whole thing and turn it inside out, because you'll have no way to. And then I left a little part open where the belt is going to go. Now you don't recognize what it is right now, but use the part that you left unsewn right here, approximately where I'm going to put the belt, and now you can pull it inside out again, and it will take the shape. It will take the shape of the coat with one part unsewn. See here. And this is where you're going to now try it on your dog and decide exactly where you want to put the belt. And in that case, you'll put the belt in. This part you can sew it once you decide exactly where the belt's going to go. Here, I actually already cut the belt pieces. I'm going to see, I've cut two long rectangles the same size of each other. Of course, you try it on your dog, see about how big your rectangle's got to be. Yeah, see, this is the exact reason you zigzag stitch the edges of the fabric, because you get all of these, and worse, it starts coming apart. So that holds it together. So I've sewn the two rectangles together as long as I need for my dog. I've, of course, tried the coat on my dog and seen how much he needs. And then you just maybe round out the corners. You know how to do this. I assume you're not beginners. So turn it inside out, and now you have your strap. Come here, Jasper. All right, so the last step is you've got to decide exactly where you're going to put the strap. See, I have my strap here, I have the coat, I have this part that I left unsewn, because I don't know still exactly where I'm going to put the strap until I have it on the dog. Or, you know, you could take the measurement prior. I have a treat here. Come here, Jasper. Come here, come here. All right, come on. All right, come this way. Okay, good boy. Good. No, stay here, though. Oh, maybe I should put the camera a different way. So we've got the coat on him, as you see, and we've left this all unsewn, depending on the thickness of your strap. You could leave less unsewn if you're sure where you want your dog's coat. But so, you know, some dogs have fatter here. So then you just decide exactly where you're going to put it. You want it back far enough from his leg so that it's not interfering with his gait when he's walking. At the same time, again, as I mentioned in the previous video, since he's a male, you don't want the strap in other areas. So you have to decide where you're going to put it, and with a pencil or pen mark exactly where you're going to sew the strap on. Here we have our belt. See, I did some decorative top stitching on it to make it a little bit sturdier. And now you have decided where you're going to put it. So you just put the belt in straight, like that. Now I know you're tempted to twist the belt. Don't. The belt goes straight, no matter what the shape of the coat is. Fold in all the excess edges, of course, and pin it into place, and then sew that with a top stitch all the way around. It's a decorative top stitch, and the top stitch will serve to hold the belt in place. Once you sew in the belt, or the strap, whatever you'd like to call it, decide on the button size, of course. Put a buttonhole at the end. Then you put it on your dog and put it on your dog, and you wrap this around all the way until it's the right snugness on your dog, and then put your button, mark the spot where you're supposed to sew your button. And I'm going to make it reversible, so I'm going to put another button. You could put the same kind of button on both sides, or I'm just going to put a less pretty button on the other side, because I think I'm mostly going to be using it on this side of the dog. Another thing you can do, you can cover the buttons with the same fabric. I'm sure you'll have some left over.